What's going on, everyone? Alex Da Silva.
And Lucy Kai from Happy as Larry Group. And tonight we're doing a video on emotional overload. Yeah, it's quite a big subject actually, I think, well, simply put, emotional overload is intense emotion that's really, really difficult to manage. And I think that, you know, it can be expanded in a lot of ways. Certainly from my own experience, I do know that when I've had any kind of emotions, I've not wanted to feel them, and in the past I've just used behaviours and substances to squash them down. And then what happens is, because that happens for a long time and over many, many years, they eventually will come out, and then what happens is that makes them even more intense, causing emotional overload. It did affect me in a way that I wasn't able to think rationally. I think it probably affects other people like that as well.
Yeah, affected me. That's for sure. Yeah, I one of the reasons we wanted to do this one is because it actually came from a conversation with a friend, and he was describing his issues. He's been watching the videos and he said, I love the videos, you guys are doing, you know, some really amazing stuff. So I said, let me know something we want to talk about. And within a split second, he said to me, oh my God, yeah, you know, my emotions, sometimes I get so overloaded with things. And straight away we came up with it. I spoke to Luce and she said, yeah, let's definitely do it, because it's something we suffered with. And again, you know, this is about you guys. So yeah, completely, you know,
yeah, I mean, for me, it definitely, it stopped me from actually functioning properly, and it affected every single area of my life, because I felt that I was completely out of control, because I didn't know the difference between my thoughts and my emotions, and I just thought that my body was something that I had zero control over, because I just felt so out of control with how my emotions affected me, and I didn't have any kind of way of managing them effectively, because I'd not learned how to do it, and I'd never really known that I should actually feel my emotions, because there's nothing wrong with that, because I always thought that any kind of negative emotion is not okay, so I'm just going to get rid of it. And then over the years it just piles up, and eventually, you know, it comes out in other ways which are obviously really, really unhealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's horrible as well. Do you know what? Talking about it kind of makes me feel a bit uneasy, because it triggers some old memories, you know, ways which I used to behave, you know, when things like this used to come up. And it's horrible. It's, you know, I really identify with this, because my emotions were always one thing that I could really not deal with. And I found it really, really difficult, you know, ever since I was a kid, you know. And again, this is one of these things that it's not just going to, you know, people our age are not just going to relate to it. I think a lot of young kids are going to relate to this as well, because I felt this from childhood, you know, before teens, and then when I got into my teens, it just got worse. And you know, my way of coping with some of these, I guess, emotions were to just, you know, act in completely different ways. And it's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a split between men and women as well, isn't there? Like, where women are expected to be quite emotional creatures, where you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to be this, you're seen as kind of like, you know, because we are seen as the nurturing half of the species, I guess. You know, when you think about a man and a woman, you automatically think a woman, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be emotional, well, that's what women do because they're on their periods or whatever. You know, and with men, it's all, you know, stiff upper lip, I don't show emotion, I'm hard, I'm the big man, and that's still what's going on with people. You know, kids are being brought up the same way. Like, boys are told that not to cry because it's a shameful thing to do, and girls are, you know, that they're pretty with pigtails and they play with dolls, and it's all right for them to cry at romantic comedies. When in fact, actually, I know you like a good rom-com.
I do, actually. Yeah, 10 Things I Hate About You. No, I'm joking. Yeah, no. Listen, it's absolutely true, and that is one of the things I really used to struggle with. I grew up around a lot of women, so I was not. I was told, and I was taught to be emotional, to open up, to talk, share your emotions, and because of those influences, I really struggled kind of growing up. When I came over here from Brazil, I went to an all-boys school, and I had to toughen up. And I never let people pick on me anyway, but it was just one of these things for me where I started to learn, or I thought I was learning, that by having those behaviors, I wasn't being a man. And, like Lucy touched on, being a man generally tends to mean that you show no emotions, there is no vulnerability, and, it is stiff upper lip, you do cross your eyebrows, and if anyone comes near, too close to you, you throw a right hook, and which is not, that's not the case at all. So, I do cry. And sometimes I cry at, really stupid things like adverts, or one of those, one of those sort of videos that people put up, with, oh bloody hell, what are they called? Inspirational videos. My mind just went blank then for a second, and so, it's, listen, we're all human beings, every single one of us. It doesn't matter what society puts on us now and what society says how we should behave. It's not true. Hence the reason why these things happen. And this is what we're going to talk about. Is to, the reason we're doing these as well is to squash this whole thing that society's putting out there, on young kids and this generation, that you have to be a certain way, you've got to behave this way, you've got to look this way, you've got to be X size, and it's such a load of rubbish.
I think it's quite confusing as well for men, because women are kind of like, I want him to be in touch with his emotions, and I want him to be sensitive, and all this kind of stuff. And then they meet a guy that does actually have those qualities, and they're like, oh, he's too much of a pansy, you know. And it's like,
he's too clingy.
Men can't get it right, and I do sympathise with men who then they do try and get in touch with their feminine side. Even saying it like that, get in touch with their feminine side, they're still made to have emotions as well. So why should it be getting in touch with their feminine side? See what it just was, it came out of my mouth so easily, because that's how I've been conditioned to think as well growing up. I've been conditioned to think that the same thing, and it's only since coming into this process and learning actually, yes, men and women are different, our genetic makeups are different, because as a species, men are to be a certain way and women are to be a certain way. However, the stigma that society puts on how women should act and behave and how men should act and behave, it needs to be squashed, because it's not this kind of attitude to men not being able to show emotions is really, really damaging, and it ends up in men being really unwell, I think.
Yeah, and I guess, for us, it kind of moves us nicely onto some of the triggers, that can cause, emotional overload, and, things like stress, and listen, just what we talked about, that's one thing. There you go. Straight away it causes so much of that, because having to behave a certain way, whether you're a man or a woman, it's really stressful out there. And I speak to friends, to family, clients, my kids, and it is really stressful. My daughter comes from school, and my son sometimes tells me certain things, and I just think, oh my God, you guys are, listen, it's just not one of these things. When I went to school, we're kind of all about just having fun. Nowadays, it's this whole, people just want to be stressed all the time, and I just think, how can you cope it? And listen, it's really not good for the soul. So stress is not good. Traumas, listen, this is a little bit more of a serious one, and we understand that, in life sometimes we do suffer from some form of trauma, which we'll get to on certain ways that, that we can look into that. And, we've both experienced, different forms of trauma, and we were very blessed, and especially the reason why we sit here today is to be able to talk to people about it, hey, because it's...
Yeah,
I
well...
mean, you can speak on that, can't you, a little bit?
Yeah, I think, you know, that the thing is with trauma is that, you know, it can happen over a long, sometimes over a small period of time, sometimes over a long period of time, and there are, you know, as a result of that happening, that it can cause post-traumatic stress disorder, which comes out in later life if it happens when you're younger, but also, you know, if it happens over a longer period of time, you know, it can cause complex PTSD, which is very, very difficult to unravel over when you identify that that's what the problem is. And I know that because I've suffered with that myself, and I've had to do a lot of therapy on myself to try and get some healing, because I swallowed a lot of trauma. I didn't let it out. I didn't express my emotions because I wasn't ever really educated on how to do that in a functional way, because anger for me was violence and screaming, and you know, and anger in itself is an emotion that's natural and that everybody should, and you know, they should be taught that they can express anger and that it's okay to express anger, because swallow anger and the consequences of that years down the line can be horrific. And I think, you know, that's just in a kind of nutshell, really. You know, trauma, we could talk about a whole other video, but yeah, that for me was I guess my main cause of emotional overload, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we talked a lot about that, don't we? When yeah, it's a huge thing. And we listen, you know, most likely, again, this is all over to you guys. If you guys want us to do something around that, then please let us know.
And sorry to just butt in there. I just want to say that around that, you know, we are willing to be as honest as we need to be, because people need to get this identification to start their own journey of healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, to put ourselves out there, it helps us as well, as you know, that we do wish that these videos will help other people. So, you know, we're more than happy to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Listen, this is the whole reason why we do it. You know, we're not just sitting here, you know, to sort of promote a business or what we do. You know, this is to change people's lives. You know, we want to stop other people from suffering, you know, and having the same experiences that we had. You know, we were very lucky and very blessed to be able to learn from a lot of these things, you know, and now being in a position where we don't stop learning. You know, we've got this hunger now to just keep learning and to keep growing, and we learn from you guys. You know, we learn from every single person that we work with, and you know, it's just an absolute gift. You know, and it's a pleasure to be able to do this for you guys. You know, so you know, look, moving swiftly on, because we can go on forever otherwise. You know, relationships. Ooh, you know, is an emotional overload sometimes. Not with us, but you know what, we are very fortunate that we communicate a hell of a lot, you know, and I think we were able to balance, you know, these emotional overloads. And it's not easy every time, but you know what, that's what it's all about. It's about having communication, is being able to share openly with each other. And listen, how are we ever going to help you guys if we can't work together on these things? So, you know, physical conditions, you know, that I know that sometimes can cause a lot of stress. I suffered from something only small, which I'll use. You know, I hurt my ankle a few years ago, which then caused for me to have sciatica, and then I hurt my lower back as well, and I couldn't walk properly for about 6 months, and the pain that I was in was just absolutely agonizing. I couldn't train. I put on a lot of weight, and you know, off the back of that, you know, my, you know, depression kicked in, you know, anxiety, and of course, you know, then internally, you know, my self-esteem, everything else got really, really affected. Mental health conditions, you know, which kind of moves us on swiftly onto that. You know, that's something that's pretty big. And even something which I noted down, and I was sort of making some notes and having to think, financial problems. That's such a huge one. So many people, especially, you know, families and couples, you know, even I guess if you're on your own as well, it's a huge one, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think it's going back to the pressures of society as well, isn't it? That, you know, that we're expected to earn a really good living and to have nice things and to live in a nice home and you know, look after a family. And you know, if we are responsible for other people as well and we've got financial problems that we are shouldering ourselves, you know, how do we how do we deal with that? And how do we cope emotionally with the financial burden of like I say, like running a family, having a car, working in the city, for example? It's really stressful. Money stuff is really, really stressful. And I think that also, you know, that kind of stuff can link to things that have happened in the past as well. Because if, for example, like I was brought up in a household that didn't have a lot, you know, we didn't have a lot of things, we didn't have a lot of money. And so one of my aims and that I wanted to have for my life growing up as an adult was to never have to kind of struggle and scrape for money. I mean, I've never been materialistic, or, you know, I've never wanted to earn millions, don't get me wrong, but I didn't want to be living on the breadline. And then to get financial insecurity, it triggers off things from the past as well. And I think a lot of people don't realise that when that happens, a lot of these things happen, they get a core belief gets triggered because you know, someone may have had financial issues when they were growing up, or their parents weren't very good with their money. So you know, it brings out that kind of scared inner child within us that then feels out of control, and then, you know, what happens? Emotional overload, and we don't know how to deal with it. And it's all linked to all that stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, God, absolutely. And you know, there's so many other things that trigger with that as well. You know, God, work, you know, death, you know, death of someone, you know, someone passing, you know, that can really trigger a lot of emotional overload. Huge, you know, in so many different ways. And I guess the symptoms, you know, from all of the things that we discuss, you know, can be, you know, extreme sadness, anger, fear, anxiety, guilt, you know, depression, feeling irritable. It's just, you know, the list goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it just snowballs, doesn't it? Because you don't always realise where all this stress is coming from either, you know. And then you get all these feelings of anxiety and stress, like you were saying, and then what happens is, who do you take it out on? The people that are closest to you, or yourself. A lot of the time it is just yourself that will suffer, that will feel overloaded with not knowing how to deal with things. And I know for me, when I was feeling emotionally out of control, like sometimes I actually felt like I wanted to pull my hair out. And I understand where that saying comes from, because had I been able to do that, I would have actually done it.
Yeah.
Because I used alcohol to cope with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Which some people do, don't they? I've heard of, you know, people actually pulling their hair out. I knew someone that used to pull their eyebrow, the hairs in their eyebrows when they started to get really, really stressed. And once they looked deeper into that, they found out it was a lot, you know, it was deeper rooted in there. So, you know, but look, one of the things to also mention as well, you know, with regards to symptoms, and this is where it starts to get a little bit deeper, and we've got to be a little bit careful. So watch out for some of these things, you know, that we've been discussing, which is isolation. That's a real dangerous one. You know, I did that a hell of a lot, and because I thought I could just cope with everything by myself. You know, that was me. I used to just think, I can't trust people, so, you know, and I'm just going to isolate, you know, which I did. And that's a really, really dangerous place to be, because off the back of that, other things that come up from that, you know, is feeling fatigue, just constantly tired, you know, lack of sleep, because this doesn't shut up, you know. So, and from that as well, you know, you kind of get the negative thoughts, which, you know, it's just, and this is when you just spiral out of control. You know, it's just allowing these things to happen. And you know what the worst thing is we don't know how to cope with it. Most of us don't know how to cope with it. I didn't, and I really struggled with it.
Well, we don't get classes in school that teach us about what emotions are and where emotions come from, and how we should deal with them. Yeah. You know, if we do have a situation where we do have financial burden, or we are concerned about something, you know, like the stuff we've spoken about earlier, there aren't any classes in school that say this is how you can deal with it. find an outlet in this sense, or get some therapy, or just the sort of basic standard things that actually we will only learn should we find people in our lives that are going to educate us on that stuff. And a lot of the time that doesn't always happen unless it gets to a point where it's completely out of control, and you've like, for me, it brought me to my knees with this stuff, and that I had to get to a point where I wanted to really take my own life, or the behaviours that I'd put in place to cope with this stuff weren't working anymore, and that it was so dangerous that they would have eventually killed me. So how do we prevent it from getting to that point?
You've hit a really good, you've hit a massive nail on the head there with regards to education, and with kids, it is so important for kids to understand that it is okay to share what's going on, whether it's good, and especially when it's bad, that we're not going to tell you that, listen, just shut up and just get on with it, or don't worry about it, it'll be absolutely fine, because these are the things that we got told. Just shut up, it's fine, don't worry about it, it's up, you get over it. This is the thing, you don't. It gets worse, because what happens is exactly one of the words that I described, which was isolation. You then start to realize, oh God, I can't turn to my parents for this, because they're just going to tell me to go away. And listen, not to sort of push anything on parents, or to say it's bad parenting. Sometimes they don't know how to deal with it themselves. And this is where what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of educate at all ages, because it is so important for people to understand that, listen, there is help out there. We can help. We've been there, and we work through these things, with family, and we work, with the kids, and it's putting these things into practice consistently, and it is part of that education. And in school, it's such a huge thing, and I tell you what, because we speak in schools, and we sometimes come out, and when we talk to each other, it's just one of these things that, we wish that they would start talking to kids more about this stuff, because when we speak to them and they just open up, it's incredible, because it's almost like you can see their little faces, and it's like a weight off their shoulder just to be able to have a 3-5 minute conversation with someone about it.
Yeah. Well, they want to talk about it, and they haven't identified anyone that they're able to actually talk to about it, because they don't always have, like you say, they don't always have the support from the parents who actually sit down and say to them, how are you feeling today? Or if they've cried about something, and that's not anything to do with the parents' fault. It's because they hadn't then learned it from their caregivers. So how are they ever going to pass it on to their kids? So when we're put in a position where we can actually give that support to kids, that I think that sometimes they kind of approach it quite tentatively, because they're not actually really sure. But when they realise that actually, we're only there, we're not there for really any gain. We're not, obviously we want to help, but I think they realise that it's safe, it's okay to talk about the stuff. Your emotions won't take you over and won't kill you, because I think sometimes we're taught not to feel our emotions because they're not good, or they're not positive. But I think, like, one of the main aims we want to get from this video, and from a lot of videos, is to actually to ask people how they manage them in a healthy way, if they do, or how is it that we manage our emotions in a healthy way? Do we actually know how we're supposed to manage them? And have we identified who our people are in our lives that we can ask for help? Because it won't always be the people that are closest to you, like your mum or your dad or your uncle and your auntie. There's always going to be someone that you can speak to, and it could be a friend or someone at work. It doesn't always necessarily have to be someone that you're actually close to. And sometimes if someone is impartial, then that's sometimes actually easier and better. And I think if you start to open up just with anyone, it gives you that chance to realise that it's okay to trust someone with your emotional well-being, and that it's okay to be vulnerable, because I guess those lessons haven't been taught growing up, to be open and honest about it. And to find that, you know, even if it's just one person that you can trust, and to share exactly what's going on for you and how you feel and how your emotions make you feel and how it affects your body, how it is affecting your life. And don't leave anything out, you know. It's really good to release this stuff, because I know certainly for me, having held in so much stuff for over a long time, when it started to come out, it manifested in physical illness, because it was like this toxic stuff that I'd been carrying in my body for so many years, that when it eventually started to come out, I got very, very unwell physically.
Which is true, isn't it? And it happens, doesn't it? We talk about it as well. You know, sometimes when one of the things I say quite a lot, you know, the reason why these negative feelings and these emotions keep coming up all the time is we keep battling between the head and the body, is because the body doesn't want it in there. It is like poison. As Lucy said, here is an example. You know, once you get open and you get really, really honest, these things will just come flooding out, and sometimes it can really take its toll. And I remember when it happened, and but you know what? How incredible did you feel afterwards? You know, when it started to lift.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do, but you have to go through the pain first, and I think that's what's confusing, because if you've been taught to not feel your emotions and to deny them, and then all of a sudden you're learning actually to feel them in every orifice of your body, and then you're getting ill as well. You know, I think that's why a lot of people stop and say, well, hang on a minute, that's it, I'm closing the book on this.
This is uncomfortable.
And that's not the right thing to do. You have to fight, like run through that house of fire, because that's how I learned. That's how I got better.
I completely agree. Listen, I had to do exactly the same. You know, I had to deal with my own things, especially, you know, we were talking earlier about, you know, male and female, and to get vulnerable with someone, you know, to go and openly speak to someone and say, listen, this is how I'm feeling, this is what's going on for me. And there were a lot of times where I just cried my eyes out, and I didn't understand why. I couldn't understand why, but these emotions just kept coming up and coming up. And 1 minute I was feeling absolutely incredible, then I was literally just on an absolute downer again. But not, and I'll make this very clear, when I said I'm on a downer, it wasn't because I was feeling depressed or I was feeling anxious or anything like that. It was just because this stuff was releasing out of my body, and it was actually just taking my energy away. But you know what the most rewarding thing about it was is, is once you get and you find that root of the problem, and you're able to look at exactly what the issue is. You know, for example, if it is something like depression or anxiety, and you find the root of the problem, and you're able to start working through it, you know, whether it is to go out and speak to somebody, or, you know, and just to really, really share it, understand it. The first thing you need to do is to accept what's happening, you know, accept those emotions. Because
it's not only the root of the problem, it's the core belief as well. Core belief that's been taught to you. Sorry, I just needed to.
No, absolutely. And, you know, once you do find that, is getting that acceptance that, you know what, you don't have to hang on to this anymore. You know, it's okay to just let it go now, you know, and get rid of it. And a lot of the times it's just that it's as easy as, you know, looking at it as in reality and false, you know. And once you do that, I'll tell you what, through every single experience of pain that I went through, I found healing at the other end. And every single time, and I still go through things now, and every time I do, it is the most rewarding thing in the world. You know, it's like going to the gym, and you go in there and you start losing weight, all of a sudden you start seeing your body changing, and you get toned, and all of a sudden when you get that six pack, you just think, oh my God, this is amazing. What do? As Lucy said, you keep pushing forward, and it's so important, isn't it?
To keep pushing forward, because there's layers and layers and layers of stuff, and the work won't finish after, you know, a few months that you think you might have conquered it. In my experience, I uncovered stuff, and it felt horrible, and I felt a lot of pain, and then even more popped out. It was like this never-ending box of worms, the can of worms. You know, once I'd opened up that lid, there was no going back. But I was so lucky that I'd had the support that I did from people that was telling me, you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
You just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and just keep believing that one day that little tiny light at the end of the tunnel will get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And one day that light at the end of the tunnel, you'll feel immersed in it. But that doesn't mean that that's the end of it. There's another bloody tunnel right in front of you that you're going to see another little tiny speck at the end of it, and that's another journey. But the more you heal from the stuff that you have already, that reinstates your faith and your self-efficacy that you can do it. And then once you start to realise that, that's when you push on and you push on and you push on, and you get even more healing, and you feel even more incredible, and you feel stronger, and you get more resilient, and you get more robust, and then you start to manage your emotions like you weren't able to in the first place because you didn't learn to.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, what we'll do now is we'll just kind of leave you with a couple of little tips which we've tried and tested, and they're incredible, aren't they? You know, these things really, really work, and you know, we put these things into practice, and we get people to practice them as well.
Yes.
So, do you want to take them through?
Oh well, we have daily practice, and every day we practice affirmations. So I every morning I say things about myself that are nice, that I like about myself, and then I share that with other women and other people who then share theirs with me as well. So I start to see what I like about myself, and that's been really, really healing and built me a lot of self-esteem. Also, meditation has been a huge healer for me as well, and certainly for Alex. I know we both practice it
Every
but
day.
it's given, for me, I was introduced to it a long time ago, and sorry, I don't want to keep going on, but for me meditation has been just the most incredible tool that I've gained a lot of healing from, and I don't really fully understand how it's happened. I know it's something to do with my brainwaves and getting connection with what I believe of a higher power and different energies and stuff like that, but again, that's another video we can go on about. But absolutely, meditation has been just beautiful.
Huge.
For me.
Yeah, and it's part of what we teach people as well, isn't it? You know, we want to incorporate this in every single thing that we do, whether it's working with somebody on a one-to-one basis, whether we're doing the workshops. You know, it's part of what we do. So, you know, absolutely. And one of the ones which I really, really like is gratitude.
Yes.
I learned to have a lot of gratitude, and listen, we really take that for granted. We really do. When we've got these emotional overloads and these things, you feel like the world is just on top of you and it's on your shoulders, and you're carrying these bags of, you know, everybody else's responsibilities. Once you set yourself free, I tell you what, the gratitude just for waking up smiling in the morning, whether it, you know, it doesn't have to happen every day. It's just beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely
you can only be, you don't have to be grateful for 15 bloody things in your life. I mean, yeah, go for it if you do feel like that. But just waking up, that's enough to be grateful for.
Gosh,
Some people aren't even alive anymore.
Yeah.
That's got to be pretty crap. But, you know, it's good to be grateful for that. And then, you know, the other things are keeping your body healthy.
Yeah.
Because if your body's healthy, then your body will feel the emotions in the right places it's supposed to feel it, and it will strive for homeostasis, which is one of my favourite words.
Yes.
Because the body wants homeostasis, which is normality in the body.
Yeah.
And having a healthy body will mean that it will get things moving in the right way, and that means your emotions as well.
Yeah, which means healthy mind.
Yeah.
Which is perfect, you know, and I think that's all we want. I think every single person, you know, just wants to feel great, you know, just wants to wake up in the morning and not stress. And you can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that. You really, really can. You've just got to put these things into practice.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. And if you don't know how to, then comment below, let us know your thoughts. And listen,
Get in touch.
Yeah, thank you for watching these videos. You know, you guys keep inspiring us. So please comment, let us know exactly what you're thinking. And if you want us to do any videos, anything that you've heard, please let us know.
Anything we'll talk about. We'll talk about. We're very open, and we know that by being open, it helps other people. So, share with us as well if you've got anything that you want to share about, anything that that has resonated with you from this video.
Yeah, anything that you've experienced. Yeah, that's awesome. And also subscribe. So remember, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're doing these videos, and we're posting them weekly, and every week it's going to be a new topic. And you can also follow us on all other social medias.
Yep. Instagram, Twitter,
Facebook, Snapchat. Yeah, and for
email.
Yeah, business services. Yeah, info@happyaslarrygroup.com if you want to talk to us confidentially, which you always can.
Yeah.
And you can go on our website, and we do at the bottom of our website, there's a little, contact us form, and you can just fill it out and it will come straight to us. And our website is www.happyaslarrygroup.com, helping to change the world one person at a time.
Cheesy ending there.
I know.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.